Indian economy, a bright spot for the entire world. But what does this mean? How exactly have we grown? Is it better than before, or does our surging economy pale in comparison with numbers we saw earlier? Hi, I'm Richa Dwivedi and this is The Bottom Line. Similar questions seem to be on everyone's mind. Some even put them to us. Well, the simple answer is that an analysis of GDP isn't just a number that defines if we are placed better or worse than we were before. For that, we will need to dig a little deeper. First off, let us understand what exactly is GDP growth. It is usually calculated annually and offers an idea on how much money is generated by an economy. Yes, it involves the total economic growth, but it is an incomplete picture. For example, what if the currency valuation is the same and things just get expensive? Therefore, if the GDP was 100 rupees in one year and 110 rupees in the next, it means the GDP grew 10%. Now the next year it grew by 10 rupees to 120 rupees. It means that here the GDP grew by 9.09%. Second, GDP growth is often a reflection of how the economic situation was in the years preceding the one in question. Now, what if we apply this logic to the years with the highest growth rate? India's GDP grew by a whopping 6.4% and 7% in 2009 and 2010 respectively. How was this possible? Because in 2008, India's GDP growth was just 1.6%. In fact, if we were to consider the growth rate of our GDP during the UPA era, that is 2004 to 2013, we get a meager 5.27%. In fact, it is a commonly known fact that the UPA pumped funds into the economy to keep it afloat, which may have resulted in a sharp increase for the first couple of years, but immediately led to a slump from which we were still recovering in 2014. But is that all? Is this the only comparison we have to make with respect to the economy? What about inflation? How does that stack up? Due to the money that the UPA pumped into the economy spiked. But was that all? No, the inflation spiked too. And after that, if inflation fell, so did the GDP growth. Notice how inflation skyrocketed, even when the UPA took over at just 4% inflation from the Vajpayee government. In contrast, when the Modi government took over a struggling economy with double-digit inflation, it brought in reforms, which over time resulted in strengthening our economy. The massive spurt in infrastructure that we have witnessed has set off a virtuous cycle where investments in infra led to more jobs, followed by higher incomes and finally more consumption, resulting in increased room for further investments. It is this long and well thought out plan which helped India emerge from a once-in-a-century pandemic with a growth rate that was higher than when it first began. All this while, it ensured that inflation was kept under check, even when we were battling the worst of the pandemic. While on one hand, we have a poorly thought out policy that resulted in more long-term trouble for the economy, on the other hand, the Modi government stands out for using adversity as an opportunity. But was this growing and robust economy an indicator for individual growth and ease of living as well? Here are some aspects for you to consider. Are the non-financial sectors such as manufacturing companies and agriculture being supported? If yes, is it being paid back? India is among the few economies to have debt lower than the start of the financial crisis. Again, does this mean India is spending less? We know that capital expenditure has never been higher, but where is it going? What does the PMAY do? What was achieved with the Swachh Bharat mission? Has anything changed since the Jal Jeevan mission? How many homes have access to electricity? What do Indians use for cooking? With so much stress on renewables and power plants, how has the power sector shaped up? Notice the growth since 2013. We just launched 5G services. But how did India get to a point where people needed faster telecom services? Because the number of subscribers tripled in just 8 years and continues to grow. Finally, let us look at the world, then versus now. In 2008-2009, during the Great Recession, India's economy grew. But what was the global outlook in the years that followed? It seems India's growth was supported by global headwinds. But that was also the case for Bangladesh, which in fact trumped India in terms of growth. Here, not only did India suffer a major setback when the crisis hit, it recovered and continued on its growth trajectory in the years that followed. Why was this possible? Because of the focus on infrastructure, on roads, railways, and airports. Because India protected the most vulnerable, and that in turn allowed them to contribute to national growth. Because rather than mindless spending, India invested in a future fueled by self-reliance. What does infra creation do? The government has had its focus on supporting growth in job-intensive sectors like infrastructure, housing, etc. First step for supporting growth is investments. With higher investments comes greater room for expansion. This in turn creates more jobs for Indians across various sectors. What do jobs mean? Higher and sustained incomes. Higher incomes then allow for increased consumption, be it fuel, services, or manufactured goods. Higher expenditure finally allows for an even greater investment across different sectors, and the cycle begins again, all by itself. Each completed cycle will therefore mean even more growth for the Indian economy. The government has been spending more on tangible growth like infrastructure, housing, tap water connections, etc. For this, the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan will take the center stage. A highlight has been the expansion of India's national highway network, which will lead to a significant jump in employment, both direct and indirect, in areas that are connected. Pace of construction of national highways increased by more than 3 times, from 12 km per day in 2014-15 to 37 km per day in 2020-21. 4,260 kilometers of national highways were constructed in 2013-14, while 13,327 kilometers national highways were constructed in 2020-21. The length of national highways has gone up by more than 50%, from over 91,000 kilometers in 2014 to about 1,47,000 kilometers in the last 8 years. The overall target is to develop 2 lakh kilometers of national highway network by 2025. From contractors to skilled machinery operators and all the way to unskilled laborers. With each day of work, more income will be generated, leading to bigger spends and a significantly stronger local economy. Modernization of Indian railways will lead to a significant growth in the number of skilled workers. Moreover, by enhancing high-end connectivity, the number of people traveling in trains also goes up, and so does the turnover for the railways. Similarly, PM Gati Shakti cargo terminals will lead to more jobs in construction as well as shipping, while simultaneously boosting infra and international trade. At present, there are 424 formally approved special economic zones in the country. As on June 2022, 376 special economic zones are notified and 270 SEZs are operational, employing over 28 lakh people. India is on an upward trajectory, fueled by boosting all the right areas through robust policies. The Indian government has shown that a crystal clear vision powered by the resolve to uplift all sections of the society can aid the growth that India today asserts to have achieved. Do you think such transformation would have sustained and grown in the Modi government's tenure if it wasn't for the foundation laid in the initial years following the change of government and its policymakers in 2014 and thereafter? You decide.